If you've ever stared at the endless rows of guitars on Amazon and thought, I don't want to waste my money on the wrong one, you're not alone. The fear of picking a model that sounds great on the demo but falls flat in your living room or worse, on stage keeps a lot of buyers up at night. And when the price tag starts nudging into the four-figure range, the stakes feel even higher. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Taylor 222 CEK DLX Grand Concert is positioned as a premium acoustic-electric option that promises the classic Taylor voice with a bit of extra flair. It's not a cheap starter, but it's also not a custom shop rarity. So, is it the right fit for you, or are you better off looking elsewhere? Let's unpack how this guitar behaves in real-world scenarios, who will get the most mileage out of it, and where the value really lives. First off, the Grand Concert body size matters more than you might think. At about 15 inches deep, it's noticeably smaller than a dreadnought, which means it sits comfortably on a smaller frame and stays balanced when you're standing with a strap. I've seen a lot of college-age players and singer-songwriters gravitate toward this shape because it lets them navigate tight venues without feeling cramped. If you're the type who plays in coffee shops, house concerts, or intimate gigs, the size translates to a warm, focused projection that fills a room without overwhelming it. The wood choices are where Taylor tries to make a statement. A koa top gives the instrument a slightly brighter, more articulate high end than a typical spruce, while still holding on to the mids that give Taylor guitars their signature richness. In practice, that means you'll notice a clear snap when you pick a high E string, but the chordal body still feels full and resonant. I tested this on an acoustic-electric rig with a modest PA system, and the tone carried well, keeping the sparkle without sounding thin. If you're into fingerstyle or light strumming, that clarity can be a real benefit. Now, the Ebony Fingerboard in a deep tobacco stain isn't just a visual flourish. Ebony feels smoother under the fingers than rosewood, especially if you have calloused fingertips. During a 2-hour songwriting session, the board stayed comfortable, and the low-profile radius meant that bending notes didn't feel blocked. However, because ebony is a dense wood, it can feel a touch slicker, which may be a consideration if you prefer a grainier surface for grip. It's a subtle trade-off, but one you'll notice if you spend a lot of time on the fretboard. The mahogany neck contributes to the overall tonal balance. Mahogany tends to add a warm, slightly darker underside to the sound, which complements the brightness of the koa top. In a live setting, that combination gave me a tonal palette that could shift from bright, percussive rhythm work to warm, rounded leads without needing a pedal board. If you're playing genres that swing between folk and soft rock, the neck-body synergy can make the transition feel natural. Because this is an acoustic-electric model, the built-in pickup system is a crucial factor. Taylor's standard electronics are known for reproducing the acoustic character accurately, and the 222 CEK system does a respectable job of capturing both the sparkle of the koa and the depth of the mahogany. On stage, I plugged into a standard PA and the sound didn't need much EQ tweaking, the highs stayed present, and the lows didn't get muddy. That said, the output level isn't as punchy as a dedicated pickup on a larger dreadnought, so if you regularly play in large venues or need to compete with louder electric guitars, you might find yourself reaching for an external preamp or a better PA. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the guitar's weight. At roughly 6.5 pounds, it's lighter than many of the larger Taylor models. For gigging musicians who hop between stages, that reduction in weight adds up over a tour. I walked a half-day festival and didn't feel the fatigue that can creep in with heavier bodies. On the downside, the lighter mass can mean a slightly less robust low-end response when you're not amplified. If you rely on natural acoustic volume for solo performances, you may notice a subtle difference compared to a bigger dreadnought. The finished tobacco-stained mahogany gives the instrument a vintage vibe that ages well. In everyday use, the lacquer holds up to the occasional bump and the natural oils from your hands. However, the darker hue does show fingerprints and light scuffs more readily than a lighter finish would. If you're the type who likes to keep everything pristine or you travel a lot with the guitar in a case, you might need to wipe it down more often. It's a small maintenance consideration, but one that can affect your perception of value over time. So, who should seriously consider the Taylor 222 CEK DLX Grand Concert? If you're a singer-songwriter who performs in small to medium venues, value a balanced tone that can shift between bright,